The stars looked different when death came calling. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the massive alien ships fill his view screen. 12 Zephyrian warships hung in space like metal sharks, each one bigger than 3 human cities put together. Their dark hulls gleamed with weapons that could turn planets into dust. Jake had seen the reports from other worlds. The Drekmari fought the Empire for 6 months before their sun went dark forever. The Veltari lasted only 3 weeks. Both species now served as slaves in the Empire's mines, if they were lucky enough to still be alive. A communication signal came through the speakers. The face that appeared made Jake's blood run cold. Admiral Corex of the Zephyrian Empire looked like a walking nightmare, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones and eyes that glowed like hot coals. His voice carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. "Human creatures," Corex said, his words dripping with contempt. "I am Admiral Corex, speaking for the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Your pathetic species has reached the end of its brief existence as free beings." Jake clenched his fists but kept his face calm. Around him, his crew waited in tense silence. Communications Officer Lucy Brown recorded every word. Weapons Officer Ben Parker checked his systems even though their small guns would barely scratch the alien warships. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely," Corex continued. "All 12 of your colony worlds will submit to Empire rule. Your people will serve us as workers and soldiers. Your technology and resources belong to us now. This is not a negotiation. This is your final notice." The Admiral's cruel smile made Jake sick. "Perhaps you think you can resist us. Perhaps you believe your primitive weapons can harm our ships. Let me show you the cost of defiance." The view screen changed to show a recording from another star system. Jake watched in horror as Zephyrian ships turned a beautiful blue world into a ball of fire. Cities vanished in seconds. Oceans boiled away. Millions of lives ended in moments. "The Cathari made the mistake of refusing our generous offer," Corex explained. "Their world burned for 3 days. We used their ashes to fertilize our garden worlds. Choose wisely, humans. Surrender and live as our servants, or die as your worlds burn around you." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in dead silence. Jake stared at the blank screen, feeling the weight of 12 human worlds on his shoulders. New Terra, New Montana, New Austin, and 9 other colonies spread across this small corner of space. 3 million human souls, all looking to people like him for answers he didn't have. "Sir," Lucy said quietly, "Governor Hamilton is calling from New Montana. Emergency council meeting in 10 minutes. Jake nodded. "Put me through to all ship. Commanders first. They need to hear this." Within minutes, the faces of the other colonial defense captains filled his screen. Captain Rosa Martinez from the Guardian, Captain Tim Walsh from the Sentinel, and 8 others, all good people trying to protect their homes with ships that were never meant to fight a real war. "You all heard it," Jake said. 72 hours to surrender or they turn our worlds into glass. I need to know what we're working with." The reports came in fast and grim. The human colonial fleet had 15 ships total, all designed for police work and asteroid mining. Their biggest weapons were mining lasers and torpedo tubes meant for clearing space debris. Against the Empire's warships, they might as well throw rocks. "What about the orbital defense platforms?" asked Captain Martinez. 24 stations. Total across all 12 worlds, replied Captain Walsh. Each one has enough firepower to handle pirates or smugglers. Against those monsters out there, they won't last 5 minutes. Jake felt his heart sink. The Empire had sent 12 warships to handle humanity's surrender. They probably considered it overkill for such a weak species. If humans tried to fight, the Empire could bring 1,000 more ships without breaking a sweat. "There's something else," said Captain Sue Davis from the Ranger. "Intelligence reports say the Empire has never lost a war, not once in over 1,000 years. They've conquered 3,000 star systems. Every species that resisted them is either dead or enslaved." The meeting ended with no solutions and no hope. Jake closed the channel and prepared for the real discussion. In 5 minutes, he would join Governor Lisa Hamilton and the Colonial Defense Council to decide humanity's fate. The quantum communication link connected him to all 12 colonial governors. Governor Hamilton's tired face appeared first, followed by the others. These were farmers, miners, and engineers who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. Now they faced extinction. "I assume you all received the same message, Governor," Hamilton said. Her voice stayed steady, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. "We have less than 3 days to decide the future of our species." Governor Pete Murphy from New Austin spoke first. "We can't fight them. Our entire fleet couldn't scratch one of their ships. If we surrender, at least our children might survive." "As slaves," snapped Governor Kate Wilson from New Terra. You see what they did to the Cathari? Complete annihilation because they said no. What happens to species that say yes? Look at the Drakmari. They mine radioactive ore with their bare hands until they die." The argument went on for an hour. Some governors wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. Others wanted to fight and die, as free humans. A few suggested running, though no one knew where humanity could hide from an empire that controlled half the galaxy. Then Dr. Alex Turner joined the meeting. The head of colonial research looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat appearance was rumpled, and his hands shook as he activated his secure channel. "I have information that changes everything," he said quietly. "For the past 3 years, my teams have been working on a classified project. We call it the Prometheus Protocol." Governor Hamilton leaned forward. "What kind of project, Alex?" Dr. Turner took a deep breath. "We've been placing fusion charges in the geological core of every human world. Not small ones. Massive networks designed to trigger planet-wide tectonic collapse. If we activate them, our worlds will tear themselves apart from the inside." The silence that followed felt like the space between lightning and thunder. Jake stared at the scientist, not sure he had heard correctly. "You want to destroy our own planets?" asked Governor Murphy. "I want to deny them to the Empire," Dr. Turner replied. "If we can't stay free, we can make sure they gain nothing from conquering us. 12 radioactive wastelands instead of 12. Productive colonies. They'll remember the cost of demanding humanity's surrender." Governor Wilson spoke first. "How long would the worlds remain uninhabitable?" "Conservative estimate? 500 years minimum, possibly longer." Jake felt something, cold and hard, settle in his chest. The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just about destroying their worlds. It was about sending a message to the galaxy that humans would rather die free than live as slaves. "All in favor?" asked Governor Hamilton. One by one, the governors voted. Jake watched each face as they chose death over servitude. When the vote finished, it was unanimous. Humanity had made its choice. In 72 hours, Admiral Orcs would get his answer written in fire across 12 burning worlds. The first evacuation ships began launching 12 hours after the vote. From orbit, they looked like tiny metal seeds fleeing a dying tree. Captain Jake Morrison watched them stream away from New Terra through his bridge windows, each ship carrying families who had no idea they would never see their homes again. Admiral Orcs noticed the evacuations immediately. From his command ship, the massive Zephyrian warship called Death's Edge, he observed the human activity with satisfaction. His communications officer, a thin alien with 4 arms, brought him the intercepted human transmissions. "They are abandoning their military positions," the officer reported. "Emergency evacuations from all 12 worlds. The humans appear to be preparing for surrender." Korek smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. Fear makes all species reasonable. Continue monitoring their communications. I want to know the moment their leaders decide to formally surrender." What Korex didn't know was that every intercepted transmission had been carefully planned. The humans were putting on the greatest deception in their short history as a spacefaring species. While some ships carried real evacuees to safety, others were part of an elaborate show designed to make the Empire believe humanity was broken. On the surface of New Austin, engineer Maria Santos crawled through a maintenance tunnel deep beneath the planet's crust. Sweat dripped from her face as she made final adjustments to fusion charge number 47. The device was larger than her entire body, connected to a network of similar bombs placed at every major geological fault line on the planet. Maria. "This is Control," came the voice through her helmet radio. "How's it looking down there?" "Charge 47 is armed and synchronized," she replied, wiping dirt from her face. "That's the last one on this continent. All fusion devices are now connected to the main detonation grid." Above ground, New Austin looked like a world preparing for surrender. The capital city had been mostly evacuated, with only essential personnel remaining. Empire spy drones that passed overhead saw exactly what they expected to see: a defeated human colony making ready to submit to Zephyrian rule. The same scene played out on every human world. Governor Pete Murphy walked through the empty streets of New Austin's capital, making sure the evacuation looked real. His security team had spent days creating fake distress signals and surrender preparations, all designed to fool the Empire's sensors. On New Montana, Governor Lisa Hamilton stood in her empty office, packing documents into boxes. She made sure to leave her desk lamp on and her coffee cup half full, small details that would convince any spy that she planned to return soon. Through her window, she could see the last transport ships lifting off from the spaceport. "Governor," her aide called from the doorway. "Dr. Turner needs to speak with you. Priority channel." Hamilton activated her secure communicator. Dr. Turner's face appeared on the screen, looking even more exhausted than before. Behind him she could see the controlled chaos of the main control center, where technicians monitored the fusion network across all 12 worlds. "Lisa, we're ready," Turner said quietly. "All charges are armed and synchronized. When you give the word, we can trigger simultaneous detonation across every human world. The geological cascade will begin within minutes of activation." "How long do we have once it starts?" 15 minutes from detonation to complete planetary collapse. The evacuation ships need to be at least 10 million kilometers away to avoid the radiation pulse." Hamilton nodded. The evacuation fleet was already twice that distance, hiding in the shadow of the system's gas giant. Commander Ryan Pierce had done an excellent job making their retreat look like panicked flight while actually following a precise escape plan. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison continued his part of the deception. He opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian fleet, making sure his voice carried just the right amount of defeat and desperation. "Admiral Orcs," he said, "this is Captain Morrison of the Human Colonial Defense Force. We need to discuss terms for our surrender." Korex's pleased laughter filled the bridge of the Defiant. "So the humans finally see reason. Very well, Captain. What terms do you wish to discuss?" "Our people are scared," Morrison continued, hating every word he had to say. "They need assurance that families won't be separated, that children will be treated well. We're a peaceful species. We just want to serve the Empire and live in safety." "Your people will be treated according to their usefulness," Korex replied coldly. "The strong will work in our factories and mines. The intelligent will serve in our research facilities. The young will be trained as soldiers for future conquests. As for families..." He paused, enjoying Morrison's obvious distress. "The Empire has no use for such primitive emotional attachments." Morrison closed his eyes, letting real anger and disgust show on his face. The Empire's spy cameras would interpret it as despair and submission. "We understand, Admiral. We're preparing a formal surrender ceremony. Our governors are gathering the documentation you requested." "Excellent. You have 36 hours remaining. Do not disappoint me, Captain." When the transmission ended, Morrison turned to his crew. Communications Officer Lucy Brown was pale with anger. Weapons Officer Ben Parker gripped his console so hard his knuckles were white. They had all heard Korex's casual dismissal of human families and children. "Steady," Morrison said quietly. "Remember what we're really doing here." Across the human colonies, the final preparations continued. On New Terra, civilian volunteer coordinator Amy Foster helped maintain the illusion by organizing fake surrender ceremonies in the abandoned city squares. Empire surveillance drones recorded humans gathering in groups, apparently practicing submission rituals for their new masters. In reality, Foster was coordinating with the few remaining humans on each world, making sure everyone understood their role in the deception. The Empire needed to believe that humanity was broken and ready to serve, right up until the moment their worlds exploded. Dr. Turner worked around the clock in his underground command center, monitoring the fusion network. His screen showed the status of over 600 charges spread across 12 worlds. Each device was powerful enough to crack a mountain. Together, they would tear the planets apart from the inside. "Doctor," his assistant called from across the room, "we're receiving final confirmation signals from all worlds. Every charge is armed and ready. The network will respond to your command in less than 2 seconds." Turner nodded, trying not to think about what those charges represented. Each fusion device sat beneath cities where he had friends, laboratories where he had worked, landscapes where he had walked with his children. In a few hours, it would all be gone forever. But the alternative was worse. He had seen the intelligence, reports about Empire slave worlds. Humans would be worked to death in radioactive mines. Their children would be turned into soldiers and sent to conquer other species. Their culture, their history, their very identity as humans would be slowly erased until nothing remained but useful tools for the Empire's expansion. Commander Pierce maintained radio contact with the evacuation fleet, now safely hidden behind the gas giant's radiation shadow. 200 ships carried every human civilian from the 12 colonies, along with seeds, genetic samples, and digital records of their entire civilization. If the plan worked, these survivors would carry humanity's story to the stars. "All ships, report ready," Pierce told Morrison over their secure channel. "We're monitoring Empire communications. They still believe we're preparing for surrender." "Good," Morrison replied. "Maintain the deception for another 24 hours. Then we give them our real answer." The hours crawled by like centuries. On every human world, the last few defenders waited in their hidden bunkers ready to trigger the fusion network that would deny their planets to the Empire. Above them, Zephyrian ships waited patiently for humanity's surrender, completely unaware that they were about to witness the most spectacular act of defiance in galactic history. Admiral Corex reviewed the surrender ceremony schedule his staff had prepared. Tomorrow he would accept the submission of an entire species. The Emperor would be pleased, and Corex's reputation would grow even stronger. He had no idea that he was about to learn why humans were different from every other species. The Empire had conquered. The galaxy was about to discover that some things were worth more than survival. 6 hours remained until the Empire's deadline. Captain Jake Morrison stood alone on the bridge of the Defiant, staring at the 12 human worlds displayed on his screen. New Terra glowed blue and green in the morning light of its sun. New Montana's vast wheat fields stretched like golden oceans across 3 continents. New Austin's mining cities sparkled like jewels in the planet's red desert. In 6 hours, they would all be gone forever. Morrison's hands shook as he opened the communication channel to Admiral Corex. This would be the last conversation between their species before everything changed. The alien's cruel face appeared on the screen, showing the satisfaction of a predator who believed his prey was already caught. "Admiral Corex," Morrison said, his voice steady despite the fire burning in his chest. "I'm calling to give you humanity's final answer to your generous offer." Corex leaned back in his command chair, clearly expecting the formal surrender he'd received from dozens of other species. "Speak, human. Tell me of your submission to the mighty Zephyrian Empire." Morrison looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes. For the first time in 3 days, he let his real feelings show on his face. Not fear or desperation, but cold, burning anger that made Corex's smile falter. "You asked us to kneel before your empire," Morrison said quietly. "You demanded our worlds, our freedom, our children's future. You wanted us to become your slaves and be grateful for the privilege." "Yes," Corex replied, confused by the human's tone. "And you will comply, or face destruction." "We choose destruction," Morrison said, "but not the kind you planned." The human captain's image on Corex's screen changed. Instead of the defeated enemy he expected, the Admiral saw something that chilled him to his bones. Morrison's eyes blazed. with the fury of a man who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. You wanted to own 12 human worlds, Morrison continued. Instead, you get 12 balls of radioactive fire. You wanted 3 million human slaves. Instead, you get a lesson that will echo across the galaxy for 1,000 years. Corex shot, upright in his chair. What are you saying, human? I'm saying that some things are worth more than life itself. Freedom is one of them. We would rather die free than live as your property. Our worlds will burn before they serve your empire. In the deep command bunker beneath New Terra's capital, Dr. Alex Turner's finger hovered over the activation switch. Around him, his team monitored the fusion network that would destroy everything they had ever known. The charges were synchronized, across all 12 worlds, ready to trigger geological collapse that would tear the planets apart from their cores. All stations report ready, his assistant announced. Fusion network is armed and awaiting your command. Turner looked at the faces of his team. These were the best minds humanity had produced, scientists and engineers who had helped build their civilization among the stars. Now, they would help destroy it, to keep it from falling into alien hands. For humanity, Turner said softly and pressed the switch. The explosion began deep in the heart of New Terra, where the first fusion charge detonated along a major fault line. The blast released energy equal to 1,000 nuclear weapons, but that was just the beginning. The fusion reaction triggered a cascade effect as neighboring charges exploded in perfect sequence, each one timed to maximize geological damage. Within seconds, similar explosions erupted across all 12 human worlds. On New Montana, the charges tore through the planet's crust beneath the major cities. New Austin's desert world cracked like an egg as fusion fire reached up from its molten core. Every human colony experienced the same carefully orchestrated destruction, turning inhabited worlds into cosmic funeral pyres. Admiral Corex watched in horror as his sensors registered massive energy releases from every human planet simultaneously. His tactical officer, a four-armed alien with compound eyes, stammered out reports that made no sense. Sir, detecting multiple fusion detonations across all human worlds. Magnitude readings are off the scale. The planets appear to be... Sir, they're breaking apart. Impossible, Corex snarled. Humans don't possess that level of destructive technology. But the evidence blazed across his view screen. New Terra's northern continent split in half as magma fountains erupted kilometers into the sky. The planet's beautiful blue oceans boiled away into steam clouds that glowed with radioactive fire. What had been humanity's largest colony became a hellscape that would remain poisonous for centuries. The same destruction consumed every human world. New Montana's golden wheat fields disappeared beneath rivers of molten rock. New Austin's mining cities vanished into glowing craters that reached down to the planet's core. 12 worlds that had taken humanity decades to terraform and settle were reduced to radioactive wastelands in less than 20 minutes. On the research vessel Horizon, Dr. Turner watched the destruction through telescopic sensors. His life's work, the Prometheus Protocol, succeeded beyond his worst nightmares. The fusion cascade tore through each planet's geological structure, creating tectonic failures that would continue for weeks. Even if the Empire tried to repair the worlds, the radiation levels would kill any living thing that approached for the next 500 years. My God, whispered his assistant, staring at the readings. The energy release is visible from 3 star systems away. Anyone in this sector of the galaxy will see what we've done. That was the point, Turner realized. Humanity's sacrifice would not be hidden or forgotten. Every species in this region of space would know that the humans chose to burn their own worlds rather than surrender them to the Empire. Commander Ryan Pierce, watching from the evacuation fleet's hiding place behind the gas giant, saw the destruction as flashes of light that outshone the system's sun. 200 ships carried the last free humans in the galaxy, refugees from worlds that no longer existed. All ships, this is Pierce, he broadcast to the fleet. Maintain communication silence and prepare for immediate departure. Our worlds are gone, but our mission continues. We carry humanity's future to the stars. Back on his bridge, Captain Morrison continued his transmission to Admiral Corex, whose face had turned pale gray with shock and rage. The alien commander stared at his screens, watching valuable planets transform into useless balls of fire and radiation. "You've destroyed perfectly good worlds," Korek said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Worlds that could have served the Empire for thousands of years. You've committed the most wasteful act in galactic history." "We've committed the most necessary act in human history," Morrison replied. "Every species in this galaxy will hear what happened here. They'll know that humans would rather die than kneel. They'll know that some people fight back, even when they can't win." Morrison's ship shuddered as the shock waves from the dying planets reached them. Even at this distance, the destruction was powerful enough to rattle their hull. But the captain stood firm, his eyes locked on Korex's shocked face. "You wanted to make an example of us," Morrison continued. "Congratulations, Admiral. You succeeded, but the example we're setting isn't the one you planned. We're showing the galaxy that the mighty Zephyrian Empire can be defied, that freedom is worth any price, that some species would rather burn their own worlds than hand them over to tyrants." The transmission ended as Morrison's ship jumped to hyperspace, following the evacuation fleet into the dark void between stars. Behind them, 12 human worlds continued their death agonies, burning like beacons that could be seen across half the galaxy. Admiral Korek sat in stunned silence, staring at the radioactive fires that had once been valuable planets. In his 1,000-year career, he had conquered countless worlds and enslaved dozens of species. But he had never encountered anything like this. No other race had ever chosen complete destruction over submission. For the first time in his long life, the Admiral felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. If humans could do this, if they could sacrifice everything rather than surrender, what did that mean for the Empire's future conquests? How many other species might choose fire over slavery once they learned what humanity had done? The burning worlds sent their message across the galaxy in the form of radiation and light that would travel for years. Every civilization that saw the glow would eventually learn the truth. Humanity had faced the choice between freedom and survival, and they had chosen freedom. The Zephyrian Empire had come to collect 12 worlds and 3 million slaves. Instead, they received 12 radioactive monuments to defiance and a lesson they would never forget. The galaxy had learned that humans were different, and that difference was written in fire across the stars. 3 months after the burning of the human worlds, Admiral Korek stood before the Emperor himself in the great throne room on the capital world of Zephyr Prime. The massive chamber could hold 10,000 beings, but today it felt empty and cold despite the crowds of nobles and military officers watching from the galleries. The Emperor was ancient beyond measure, his gray skin stretched tight over bones that had seen the conquest of 3,000 worlds. His voice carried the weight of a millennium when he spoke, and every word felt like a judgment. "Explain to me, Admiral," the Emperor said slowly, "how you allowed an entire species to escape after destroying 12 perfectly good planets." Korex kept his eyes fixed on the marble floor. In his long career, he had never faced such humiliation. "Your Majesty, the humans possessed technology we had not encountered before. They sacrificed everything rather than submit to our rule. And where are they now?" "Unknown, Your Majesty. Our scout fleets have searched every system within 50 light years. The human evacuation fleet has vanished completely." What Korex didn't know was that the human fleet was much closer than he imagined. Hidden in a dead system only 20 light years away, 200 ships drifted in the shadow of a burned-out star. The humans had learned to mask their energy, signatures, and move without leaving ion trails that Imperial scouts could follow. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the entire human fleet from the repaired battleship Defiant, studied the tactical displays in his new command center. Engineer Maria Santos had worked miracles with salvaged Imperial technology, turning their refugee ships into something that could actually fight back. "Report from the scouting mission," announced Communications Officer Lucy Brown. "The Veltari resistance cell on Kepler 7 successfully destroyed 3 Imperial supply convoys this week. They're using the tactics we taught them." Morrison smiled grimly. The humans had discovered that running and hiding wasn't enough. If they wanted to survive, they needed allies. More importantly, They needed to spread the message that the Empire could be fought and beaten. Dr. Alex Turner, working from a mobile laboratory built inside a converted cargo ship, had developed new technologies that turned their weakness into strength. Instead of trying to match Imperial firepower, the humans focused on speed, stealth, and surprise attacks that struck where the enemy was weakest. The new cloaking devices are working perfectly, Turner reported during the daily command meeting. We can hide entire squadrons from Imperial sensors. Combined with our hit-and-run tactics, we're becoming a real problem for their supply lines. Lieutenant Ben Parker, now promoted to commander after their losses, had become the fleet's expert on asymmetric warfare. He studied every Imperial convoy route, every communication pattern, every weakness in their massive military machine. The Empire is getting frustrated, Parker explained to the assembled ship captains. They're used to crushing resistance with overwhelming force. They don't know how to fight an enemy that won't stand still and die. The truth was that the human fleet was growing. Every successful raid brought new allies and captured supplies. Species that had been conquered by the Empire began to remember what freedom felt like when they saw humans striking back against their oppressors. Commander Ryan Pierce led one of these rescue missions to the Altarian system, where the native population had been enslaved for 50 years. The blue-skinned Altarians worked in the Empire's weapon factories, building the ships that conquered other worlds. Pierce's strike force of 12 human ships approached the factory stations in complete stealth. Their new technology made them invisible to Imperial sensors until they were already inside the defensive perimeter. All ships, this is Pierce, he broadcast on the secure channel. Remember, we're here to liberate, not destroy. Target the guard ships and leave the factories intact. We want the workers alive and free. The attack lasted only 20 minutes. Human ships struck like ghosts, disabling Imperial guards before they could raise an alarm. The factory workers, expecting another day of forced labor, instead found human soldiers cutting their chains and offering them a choice: continue as slaves or join the rebellion. Most chose freedom. When Pierce's fleet departed, they carried 3,000 Altarian volunteers and enough stolen weapons to arm a small army. More importantly, they left behind a message that spread across the Empire's communication networks. The species that burned their own worlds was still fighting, still free and still winning. Back on Zephyr Prime, the Emperor received reports of these attacks with growing anger. His generals assured him that the human fleet was small and would be crushed eventually. But the damage to Imperial prestige was enormous. How many systems have reported rebellion in the past month? The Emperor asked his intelligence chief. 17. Your Majesty, the alien replied nervously. The humans appear to be inspiring other species to resist our rule. They share technology, provide training, and coordinate attacks across multiple sectors. And our response? Admiral Corex has been given a new fleet of 50 warships with orders to hunt down the human refugees and end this rebellion permanently. But Admiral Corex was learning that hunting humans was unlike any military campaign he had ever fought. The refugees didn't defend territory or protect fixed positions. They appeared without warning, struck hard at Imperial supply lines, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Worse still, every attack succeeded in ways that went beyond military damage. News of human victories spread through the Empire's slave populations, inspiring hope in species that had forgotten they could fight back. Governor Lisa Hamilton, now serving as the civilian leader of the human refugees, received daily reports from resistance cells across the galaxy. Her government operated from a converted passenger liner, moving constantly to avoid Imperial detection. The Drakmari have formed their first rebel army in 200 years, she announced during the weekly council meeting. The Cathari survivors on New Kepler are sabotaging Imperial mining operations. Even the Zephyrians themselves are starting to question their Emperor's policies. Dr. Turner's latest intelligence reports painted a picture of an empire under stress. The cost of hunting the human fleet was enormous, requiring resources that could have been used for new conquests. Meanwhile, rebellion was spreading faster than Imperial forces could contain it. They're sending scout fleets to investigate every system with unusual energy readings, Turner explained. But we've taught our allies how to mask their signatures. The Empire is essentially hunting shadows across half the galaxy. The humans had learned something important. They didn't need to defeat the Empire in open battle. They just needed to prove that the Empire could be defied successfully. Every victory, no matter how small, weakened the image of imperial invincibility that held their vast territories together. Captain Morrison reviewed the fleet's status during his evening briefing. In 3 months, their refugee convoy had transformed into a mobile rebellion that operated across dozens of star systems. They had rescued thousands of slaves, captured imperial supplies and weapons, and proven that the mighty Zephyrian Empire could be beaten by a species that refused to surrender. "Signal from the Centauri resistance cell," reported Lucy Brown. "They're requesting assistance with a major operation against the Imperial shipyards at Beta Station." Morrison nodded. "Prepare a strike force. It's time to remind the Empire why they should have accepted our surrender when they had the chance." As the human fleet prepared for its next mission, the burned worlds they had left behind continued to glow in space, visible reminders of the price of freedom. Those radioactive monuments had become pilgrimage sites for rebels across the galaxy, proof that some species would choose fire over slavery. The Zephyrian Empire had thought they were conquering a weak species on the outer rim. Instead, they had awakened something that threatened their very existence. The idea that freedom was worth any sacrifice, and that even the mightiest empire could fall if enough people refused to kneel. Admiral Corex's hunt for the human fleet would continue, but he was no longer chasing refugees. He was chasing the spark that would ignite a galactic revolution, and that spark was spreading faster than his ships could fly. 2 years after the burning of the human worlds, the galaxy had changed. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, now called the Phoenix, watching the largest fleet in human history prepare for battle. Around him floated ships from dozens of species, all united under the banner of freedom that humanity had raised with their sacrifice. The Altarian Republic had sent 50 warships. The Centauri Alliance contributed 30 more. Even the scattered survivors of the Cathari brought their rebuilt fleet to join the fight. What had started as 200 refugee ships had grown into an armada of over 800 vessels, all following the humans who had shown them that the Empire could be defied. Morrison received a priority transmission from the bridge of the Altarian flagship. Captain Zara Veltai, the blue-skinned warrior who had become one of humanity's closest allies, appeared on his screen with a fierce smile. "Jake, our scouts report the Imperial fleet is moving into position around Zephyr Prime. Admiral Corex has brought everything he has left. Over 2,000 ships defending the Empire's capital world." "Good," Morrison replied. "Let them come to us. It's time to finish what we started." In the 2 years since their escape, the human fleet had grown into something the Empire had never faced before. A true rebellion with popular support across dozens of worlds. Dr. Alex Turner's technology had spread through the Resistance network, giving even primitive species the ability to strike back at their oppressors. Governor Lisa Hamilton, now leading the provisional government of the Free Worlds Alliance, broadcast a message to every inhabited system in the galaxy. Her words carried the authority of someone who had chosen to burn her own world rather than surrender it to tyrants. "People of the galaxy," she said, "today, we strike at the heart of the Empire that has enslaved our worlds for 1,000 years. We fight not for conquest, but for the simple right to live free. The humans showed that some things are worth more than life itself. Today, we prove that freedom is one of those things." The battle plan was ambitious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. Instead of trying to match the Empire's massive fleets in direct combat, the Alliance would strike at the source of Imperial power, the control networks that maintained their grip on 3,000 worlds. Dr. Turner, working from his mobile laboratory, had spent months developing the technology that would make their victory possible. His team had found a way to disrupt the quantum communication systems that allowed the Empire to coordinate across vast distances. The Imperial control network depends on synchronized signals from Zephyr Prime, Turner explained to the assembled fleet commanders. "If we can plant disruption devices in the capital's quantum transmitters, we can cut off Imperial command from their entire fleet. Without coordination, their advantage in numbers becomes meaningless." The plan required precision, timing, and incredible courage. Small teams would have to penetrate the most heavily defended world in the galaxy, plant the disruption devices, and escape before the Imperial fleet could respond. It was the kind of desperate mission that only people fighting for their freedom would attempt. Commander Ryan Pierce led the insertion team that would carry the disruption devices to Zephyr Prime's surface. His ships were the fastest and most advanced in the human fleet, equipped with stealth technology that Dr. Turner had perfected during their years as fugitives. "Remember," Pierce told his pilots, "we're not trying to destroy their capital. We're trying to free it. Every being on that planet has lived under Imperial rule their entire lives. Some of them are ready to join us, but only if we show them that freedom is possible." The attack began at dawn on Zephyr Prime, local time. Pierce's stealth ships slipped past the orbital defenses and landed near the capital's communication centers. Meanwhile, the main Alliance fleet engaged Admiral Corex's forces in the outer system, drawing attention away from the real target. Morrison watched the space battle unfold on his tactical displays. The Empire's ships were larger and more powerful, but the Alliance had learned to fight like humans, fast, clever, and unpredictable. They struck where the enemy was weakest and vanished before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. "Alliance fleet, this is Morrison," he broadcast to his ships. "Remember why we're here. Every person fighting beside us today chose freedom over slavery. Every ship in our fleet represents a world that refused to kneel. Today, we make that choice. For the entire galaxy." On the surface of Zephyr Prime, Pierce's team fought their way through the capital's defense forces. The quantum communication centers were buried deep beneath the planet's crust, protected by layers of security that had never been breached in Imperial history. But Pierce's soldiers carried something the Empire had never faced: the desperate courage of people who had already lost everything and refused to lose anything more. They fought with the fury of humans who remembered 12 burning worlds and the promise that those sacrifices would not be forgotten. "Disruption devices are in place," Pierce reported as his team fought their way back to their ships. "Turner's equipment is active and spreading through their network. Imperial communications are starting to fail across multiple sectors." The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Empire. Admiral Corex watched in horror as his carefully coordinated fleet began to fall apart. Ships lost contact with their command centers. Entire battle groups found themselves fighting without orders or support. The Imperial advantage in numbers meant nothing when they couldn't communicate or coordinate their attacks. But the real victory was happening across the galaxy. As the Imperial control network failed, resistance cells on 1,000 worlds began their own uprisings. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found their guards confused and their masters cut off from reinforcement. Dr. Turner monitored the cascade effect from his command center aboard the Phoenix. His disruption technology was working better than he had dared hope, spreading through the Imperial network like a virus that destroyed tyranny wherever it touched. "Jake," he called to Morrison, "we're receiving surrender signals from Imperial governors on over 600 worlds. The slaves are freeing themselves faster than we can count. The Empire is collapsing from within." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing Admiral Corex's fleet in complete disarray. The Imperial Admiral who had demanded humanity's surrender now faced the same choice he had given them: submit or be destroyed. "Open a channel to Admiral Corex," Morrison ordered. The alien's face appeared on the screen, no longer showing the arrogant confidence Morrison remembered. Corex looked like a general who had just watched his entire army desert him in the middle of battle. "Admiral," Morrison said calmly, "2 years ago, you offered humanity a choice. Kneel before your empire, or face destruction. We chose destruction, but not the kind you expected. Today I offer you the same choice. Surrender now and help us build a galaxy where all species can live free, or watch your empire burn as our worlds did." Corex stared at the human captain for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would never come. The empire that had conquered 3,000 worlds was dying, killed by the idea that freedom was worth any price. "I surrender," Corex said quietly. The message spread across the galaxy faster than Imperial ships could fly. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled for 1,000 years, had fallen to a species that chose to burn their own worlds rather than surrender them. The humans who had left their planets in flames had returned to light the fires of freedom across the stars. Morrison stood on his bridge watching the tactical display as Imperial fleets throughout the galaxy laid down their weapons. The burned worlds that had started this rebellion still glowed in space, radioactive monuments to the price of freedom. But they were no longer symbols of loss. They had become beacons of hope that would shine across the galaxy for generations to come. Governor Hamilton's voice echoed through every liberated system as she announced the formation of the Galactic Federation, an alliance of free worlds that would never again bow to tyranny. "We are all children of fire now," she said, "born from the flames that humanity chose over slavery. We have learned that freedom is not something others can give us or take away. It is something we must choose again and again, no matter the cost." The galaxy would remember the humans who burned their worlds rather than surrender them. They would remember that some things are worth more than survival, and that the greatest victory sometimes comes from refusing to be defeated. The Empire had demanded that humanity kneel, but instead they had taught the galaxy how to stand.